To all of our newcomers, welcome. Thank you for joining us. My name is Kelly Butler. I'm the Associate Director of Admission. We're also joined by Melinda Peerboom, who's our Associate Registrar. If you don't know what a registrar is, I will let her explain that to you, but in general, she is the guru for course credit stuff, for graduation requirement stuff, for major and minor requirement stuff, for course equivalencies, all those types of really complicated, scary things. She knows how to do them. She will help you with them. And she was also voted Best Compass Advisor this year. So if any of you are lucky enough to get her as your first year Compass Advisor, you will be super lucky. But again, feel free to send us your Q&A questions now. I know there's an option to submit anonymously, and you can do that. But like I said, we will follow up with any question we don't have time to get to, but we can only do that if we know who you are. So if you're okay with it, please go ahead and leave that name on. Don't hit the anonymous button so that we can follow up with you afterwards if we're not able to get to your question during the webinar today. And again, if we don't answer your question, don't think that means there is no answer. Please reach out to your counselor. Please reach out to us and we will help you. All right, I think folks are still filtering in, but we've got a good number of people here in our attendee list. So I'm going to throw it over to Melinda, let you introduce yourself and get us going.
All right, thanks, Kelly. I really appreciate it. Hi, everybody. My name is Melinda Peerboom, and as Kelly said, I'm the Associate Registrar. I'm also an alum of Oglethorpe, so I graduated in 2012, so I know all its ins and outs and all its little secrets. But a registrar is basically a problem solver. So everyone brings me their problems and I like to solve them. So tonight I'm going to share some information about AP, IB, and dual enrollment credits. And like Kelly said, I might not be able to address your specific situations or your specific questions about your equivalencies, but at the end of this presentation, I'll give you my contact information. You're welcome to email me. I'm working from home right now, so email is probably the best, but you're always welcome to reach out with your questions and I'll try to help you as much as I can. So without further ado, let's get started. I've put together a little presentation for you so that you can kind of look at this and read this as we're going through. So as I said, I'm the Associate Registrar and I work in the Office of Enrollment Services. So Enrollment Services is there to help you with anything from billing to registration to financial aid. So we're all housed in one convenient area, although maybe not convenient given the current circumstances, but so just to, go forward. The first thing I want to do is explain the value of your credits. So the #1 question I get asked by students is, well, if it's just elective, so if it doesn't satisfy one of my major requirements, is it worth anything? Like, what's the point? There's definitely value in all of your credits. So I kind of want to start with the basics and move forward. So one of the things I'd like to highlight here is that all of our bachelor's degrees require students to earn 128 credit hours. If we consider that 1 year is 2 semesters, so traditionally you would go your fall semester and spring semester, and you have to complete 12 credit hours, I've done this calculation for you here at the bottom of the screen. You see 128 credit hours divided by 4 years equals 32 credit hours per year. 32 credit hours divided by the traditional 2 semesters equals 16 credit hours per semester. Well, that 16 credit hours is different from the 12 credit hours required to be a full-time student. So students who bring in credits through AP, IB, or dual enrollment, even if they are just elective credits, those still give you some flexibility. So let's say you're starting your first semester and you're like, wow, like I had a good handle on this, but you know, the transition and given the current global situation, I just feel that maybe 4 classes is a lot for me and I'd rather take 3. Great, you have flexibility here and you're still on track for meeting that 128 credit hour requirement. I also want to point out that it changes your standing based on how many credit hours you have. So freshmen are students who have 0 to 32 credit hours, sophomores 33 to 64, junior 65 to 96, senior 97 or above. And I know everyone's like, great, yeah, Melinda, how does this really help me? Not only do you potentially have the equivalency for major and minor courses and the ability to maybe take fewer than 16 credit hours, registration every semester is based on the number of earned credit hours you have. So bringing in credit hours, regardless of whether they're major, minor, or elective, means that you have the potential to register earlier than your peers. That's great. That gives you the chance to, oh, last seat in that class I really wanted. It's yours. Entry to upper level classes. So maybe you've satisfied a prerequisite, a course that you would have to take before another course with some of the coursework you've already completed or the credits you've already earned. And some of our classes require that you have a certain credit hour standing before you can enroll. This helps you get there faster. It also gives you greater flexibility to pursue an internship or study abroad. Both are things that we really encourage our students to consider pursuing while they're at Oglethorpe. So, okay, well, if I only have to do 12 credit hours this semester, maybe I could look at doing an internship this semester. Or, look, I've planned everything out. I have an extra semester. You know what? I'm going to Oxford. Awesome. This gives you that greater flexibility. And lastly, it could also mean you graduate a semester early. So especially given the current kind of financial situation, people are like, well, you know, if I could finish a semester early, that'd be great. Students who are bringing in credits oftentimes get there faster. So now that I've kind of gone through the value of those credits, I'm going to start with talking about advanced placement. Now, each of these sections is divided into advanced placement, IB, and dual enrollment. What I'm going to do is go through the policy and kind of some basic things to know, what those equivalencies are, so what scores are required, what are they equivalent to, and then some frequently asked questions that we get about those specific scores and or credits. So advanced placement. We currently accept scores of 4 or 5. So you have to take the AP test and you do have to have a score of 4 or 5 on it to earn credit. You are not able to bring in more than 32 credit hours of AP credit. So that means, let's say you took 10 tests and you got a 5 on all of them. 1, you're really, really smart and wow. 2, you would need to pick 8 of those 10 classes to bring in. Usually we work on a one-on-one basis with those students to assess which 8 are most appropriate to give credit for. Foreign language and culture exams, we have a clause that says if you're taking a language and culture course, so for example, Spanish, French, Italian, and you take our foreign language placement exam, and you score your 4 or 5, and you place into the 200 level of the foreign language placement, you get 8 credit hours instead of 4 credit hours. So it gives you, in essence, the 100 level sequence. So for example, let's say I took AP Spanish language. I got a 4 on the test, and I take the language placement exam. In the language placement exam, I place into Spanish 201. I now get credit for both Spanish 101 and Spanish 102. So I really encourage students, some students are like, no, I'm not going to take the foreign language exam. Take the foreign language exam. We must have an official report from the College Board. A lot of times students think of this, it's on the back burner, it's not something you're thinking about. You do have to request that the College Board send us your official scores. They will send them as an electronic file and we'll import them into our system. I also want to highlight that there were some questions sent in by students ahead of time about COVID-19. Our policies have not changed, but that is subject to change. So we are constantly reviewing the information we're receiving from the College Board. They have indicated that we should not change our policies at this time. If that changes, you'll be the first ones to know. So this is our equivalency chart. I'm going to go through this rather quickly and I'm not reading each of them, but you will have access to this later. This is basically just showing you what the exam name is for the AP, how many credit hours you can earn at Oglethorpe, and what the course is equivalent to. I would like to point out, you can see on some of these, like for example, Physics C, Electricity, and Magnetism, there are 6 credit hours. So some of those things do vary. So maybe just pay attention to the fact that it's the course and the lab. So for those students who maybe are pursuing science degrees or science majors and have AP scores, there's a lot of credit here, a lot of possibilities. I also know that this is not all encompassing for the AP exams that exist. Last year I saw one for the first time. I'm like, I didn't even know there was an AP exam. For those, we will review all of them. We'll review all of them for equivalency to a possible OU course, but at bare minimum, we'll always give elective credit. So if you don't see your AP exam listed here, don't fret. We will award you credit. It's just not something that we maybe have on the chart right now. Frequently asked questions. If I don't take the AP test, can I still get credit for the class? No, unfortunately, we can only award credit if you take and successfully pass the AP exam. Do I still need to take the math and/or language placement exam? It really depends. Because our Director of Advising, Renee Alvarez, who I'm sure you'll meet at some point, is building schedules throughout the summer. We'll really encourage students to take the math placement or the language placement exams if you haven't already submitted your scores. So with advanced placement, if you've already sent us your scores, and let's say that you have credit for calculus or you have credit for Spanish language, you don't necessarily have to take the language placement or the math placement. But I'd recommend it. Always better to be safe than sorry. I'd also like to point out that whichever is best for you supersedes the other. So for example, let's say in the math placement, you place into college algebra, but you have credit for calculus 1. We'll still honor the calculus 1 and place you according to that score. Can we receive core class credit for AP scores? Fortunately, no core equivalencies are awarded for AP, IB, or dual enrollment. I earned a 4 or 5 on an AP test and received credit for a course. Can I still take that course? I get this a lot with psychology. I'm not sure why, but this particular class, for AP psychology, if you score a 4 or 5, you get the equivalency for Psych 101, Introduction to Psychology. A lot of students say, you know what, I know I got a 4, but I just feel like I didn't quite get it and I'd really like to retake it. That's perfectly fine. Usually we work with you on a one-on-one basis, but usually we'll let you take the class and then we'll give you elective credit for that. So you don't lose that credit at all. When is the deadline to send your AP scores, and do I have to send them all? I once had a student who was graduating, and 2 days before he graduated, he's like, oh yeah, did you guys ever add those AP scores to my account? I'm like, AP scores? What AP scores? We didn't know you had AP scores. So our rule of thumb is before you graduate. It's preferable to send them as soon as possible so that we can get them added to your account, because if you do have equivalencies, we don't want you repeating classes. I mean, that's not the point. We want you to succeed. We want you to get through things as quickly as possible. So repeating coursework is not effective. Your AP score report will include all of your scores. So you can't pick and choose which scores we get. We will see all of them. But I'd like to point out that none of these will be viewed detrimentally. None of them will hurt you. So if you're afraid, you know what, I took AP computer science and I got a 1. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got a 1. They're gonna rescind my admission. We're not gonna rescind your admission. It's not gonna change your financial aid or your merit scholarship. So don't panic if you're worried about one particular score. Do I have to send my AP scores? Yes, your high school will not send your AP scores for us. So you do need to contact the College Board to send them to us. So IB, International Baccalaureate. IB is awarded in a very unique way. So we award based on the diploma score as well as your individual test scores. So the minimum diploma score is a 24. The minimum test score is a 5. We cannot award more than 32 credit hours, so the same policy as AP. Foreign language and culture exams, the same principle applies as it did for AP. So for example, if you score a 5 on the IB French, if you take that French language placement exam and you score into the 200 level, you get credit for both French 101 and French 102, so the entire sequence. And we must have an official report from the IBO. Now, IBO has communicated with us that things operated differently this year, but they have assured us that we will still receive a score report. They've used historical data to project what you would score on those exams, and so we're going to use that to determine what credits you may be eligible for. Now, what I've included here is the IB diploma score and the number of credit hours awarded from OU. The thing that makes this a little bit difficult, and I've highlighted here at the bottom, is that the IB diploma score dictates the maximum number of credit hours you're eligible to receive. So for example, let's say you score a 25 on the IB diploma score, but you have 4 individual tests and you've scored a 5 or higher on all of them. The maximum number of credit hours you can receive is 12. So I can't award you 16 credit hours based on the tests you've taken. The maximum number is 12. I know that this can be a little confusing and students oftentimes have lots of questions about how that's calculated. Happy to answer them on a one-on-one basis after the presentation. This is the score chart for all of the IB tests, the individual subject tests, and what those are equivalent to here. Now, with IB, we've had some questions in the past, for example, with mathematics and having elective credit. If you're planning to go into that particular major, We'll work with you on a one-on-one basis to consult the program coordinator to see if there's a possibility that we could use that towards the major in some way. So I know there's no definitive answer here, but we will work with you to find those. Frequently asked questions. Do I still need to take the math and/or language placement exam? Since we don't usually receive reports until July, which is well after we've started building schedules for incoming students, we really encourage you to take them as soon as possible. So we don't want you to wait and then spots fill up and there's no seat in the class that you really want. So I would encourage you to take them. Can we receive core credit for IB scores? Unfortunately, no. I earned a 4 or 5 on the subject test and received credit for a course. Can I still take that course? Again, same thing with advanced placement. Of course, we'll work with you so that you feel comfortable and prepared going to your coursework, but we'll still grant you elective credit so you don't feel that you're losing anything. Do I have to send my IB scores? As long as you've told your IB counselor at your high school that you're planning to enroll at Oglethorpe, they will make sure that IBO releases your scores to us. Dual enrollment. Dual enrollment credits are a little bit unique and a little different. So this might take a little bit longer. So everyone, please just bear with me. We accept credits from any regionally accredited institution. Students all the time, what's a regionally accredited institution? Regionally accredited just means that, for example, Oglethorpe is accredited by the Southern Association. As long as it's accredited by one of those associations, you'll be fine. If they've partnered through your high school, they're regionally accredited. If you're not sure, if you want to check, send me an email and I'll pull the accreditation for you and we can verify. You'll receive credit for all of the courses you take, provided that you've earned a C- or better. We do not penalize students if you've used that course to satisfy a high school requirement. So for example, if you've taken English 1101, English Composition 1, to satisfy your junior level English requirement in high school, we'll still award you credit for that course at the college level. There's no limit on the number of credit hours you can bring in from dual enrollment, but we must have an official transcript from the institution. A lot of students assume that these are being sent automatically, and they are not. You must request them directly from the institution to be sent to Oglethorpe. Now, we don't have any equivalencies published out on our website or available in any other format, but what we have started doing is putting together something like this. I've used Georgia State University as an example because it's the school where lots of our students take dual enrollment. And what we've done here is on the left-hand side, you can see the transfer course. So that's the course that you would have potentially taken at Georgia State, the course title, and then the course that it's equivalent to at Oglethorpe and the number of credit hours that a student can receive. We're working on all of these for our incoming students, and we're hoping to email these out in the upcoming weeks. So please be patient and bear with us. But if you're just super eager and you're like, no, Melinda, I have to know, I need to plan these. I'm type A, I know. I'm happy to help you. I was that student once upon a time, so we can certainly work through those things. But just know that they are on their way and they are coming. Frequently asked questions. Do I still need to take the math and/or language placement exam? This one really depends. First, we need to have received your official transcript. Some schools are still posting final grades, or some students may be enrolled in summer classes, so we don't have a transcript yet. If you are taking courses, so if you've either taken courses in the past or you're currently enrolled in courses that are math and language specific, I would encourage you to at least send the unofficial transcript so that we have an idea that these credits are coming. Can we register you for classes based on those? No, we have to have the official transcripts before we can make any registration changes. So this is where I say it really depends. I would strongly encourage you to take the placement exams if you can, only because that gives us a more solid foundation to go ahead and start registering you for more appropriate classes. Again, if your credits supersede, so for example, if you take calculus as a dual enrolled student, but we don't have that official transcript and you place into college algebra with the placement exam, we'll still register you for calculus at the end of the day because that's what you've earned credit for, okay? Can we receive core class credit for dual enrollment? No, no core equivalencies are awarded for AP, IB, or dual enrollment. If I took dual enrollment courses at a school out of state, will you accept them? Absolutely, as long as it's regionally accredited and you earned a C- or better. And do I have to send my transcripts? Yes. Again, high schools will not send them to us. They can't send them to us. So working the registrar's office, which is responsible for transcripts, I can tell you, you have to order them directly from the school to be sent. If you're not familiar with it, the National Student Clearinghouse is an organization where most schools participate. You can go there and order your transcripts to be sent to us. So the follow-up to the question is great. That's how my credits are being evaluated, but how will I know when you get those reports? How will I know when you get your transcripts? Here I've included some templates of emails that we send. Now we send these emails directly to your Oglethorpe email account. So if you aren't using your Oglethorpe email, highly encourage you to start using it. But if you're not, that's okay. They'll be waiting for you once you finally log in. So the one on the left-hand side is a notification for IB and AP scores. So it just gives you a little bit of information about where you can find that exact policy and how you can view this in your student account. On the right-hand side, we have an email that says your dual enrollment credit, which we've called in this email transfer credit. We do refer to dual enrollment as transfer credit, so please don't be confused. But we award those based on this policy, and here's where you can view those credits on your record. But I wanted to put together a little video for you to see how you could access these yourself. So if you go to the Oglethorpe main page and select OASIS at the bottom, you're going to go to our login page for our student system. Now you do have to use your login credentials that you've been sent. If you haven't been able to log in yet, we can direct you to the IT help desk to help with that. The OASIS for Students tab is our main menu for students. And by clicking that New Student Planning, View Plan and Register, it takes you to our New Student Planning module. Here we go to the Student Planning menu, and we're going to select Test Summary. Once we scroll down to Test Summary, you'll see that there are AP and IB scores entered for this student record. And you'll see that they're notational only are accepted. Those that say accepted are the ones that have been granted credit. Notational only just lets you know we've received them, but they might not be there. By selecting the My Progress and scrolling to the bottom, this is where you see how credits, dual enrollment or otherwise, have been added to your account. So, for example, you see that Intro to General Psychology course there. Let's say this student were a psychology major. I'm sorry, it's a gift, everyone, so it's just going to keep running. But let's say you were a psychology major, you would see that credit filling in for that Intro to Psychology course requirement. So it really gives you a real-time view of how those credits are being used on your record and how they're being applied. And so really encourage students, if you have questions about how credits are being satisfying major or minor requirements, or you know, kind of what do I have left to take, that's always the place to go look for it. That is all I have for the presentation. I hope that I didn't move through that too quickly, but I also know that I would have been tired of hearing me drone on. So I'm going to let it go back over to Kelly now so she can share any questions that some of you may have.
Yeah, so guys, please go ahead and start sending us your questions. As soon as you've got them, we're ready to take them now. I will go ahead and ask for a clarification, Melinda. When should students expect to be able to go into student planning and actually see those credits that they will have upcoming?
So awesome, great question. I'm glad you said it. So if we've received any AP scores for you or any dual enrollment transcripts, I think there are 4 new scores we got in today, but otherwise we've already added everything we already have. Now remember, it does have to be official. So if we haven't gotten an official report, we haven't been able to add that credit. But we sent out about 57 notifications earlier this week to incoming students that those credits were posted. Now, I'm not 100% sure, Kelly, you might be able to answer this more effectively than I can. Students have to be sent their login information for their OASIS and student account, so their email account, their IT email. Once you receive that and you've set up your account, you should be able to log into OASIS without any issue. But that setup step does have to happen first. So that's
the majority of you guys should have that. You probably set up your Oglethorpe email already and your OASIS account beforehand. So you did have to set up OASIS to set up your email. If you are very recently enrolled with us, you may not have gotten that yet, but we are working on it. If you haven't, or you haven't figured out how to get in there, let us know. We can definitely help you, like Melinda said. We have a question in the Q&A from Ezra wondering, should we still send in our reports before we graduate if we just took a test and don't have a score yet in terms of AP? So should students go ahead and send reports in if not all of their scores are ready?
That's an awesome question, Ezra. I would encourage you, I would hold off until your scores are in. Um, we won't be building schedules until later in June, so we still have plenty of time. So your AP scores should have come in by that point, and you can send them once those final scores have posted. That's an excellent question.
All right, we had a question that came in with the pre-registration. English 101 and English 102, are they needed? Is it worth transferring them in? So I think this goes to the whole core question of replacing core, and I'll let you answer. One thing I want to point out for students is a lot of them hear that piece about not getting core credit, and they think, now I'm going to have to retake English 1101. I'm going to have to retake 1102. I'll have to retake American history, all the classes that I took. The beauty is those are not our core classes. So you will not have to retake those. That's not what we're saying, but I'll let you go ahead and answer that question.
Sure. So having been a product of the Oglethorpe education, I can testify to the fact that our core classes are not like the English composition courses that you've taken. So the beauty about our core classes is it's kind of a combination of different subjects. So in that narratives of the self, the core 100 level that students often think of as English 1101, English 1102, you're combining English with philosophy and sociology. So you're getting a combination of those subjects. So those English classes, while preparing you phenomenally for writing and going into this class with some skill, you're still not getting all of the thought process that goes behind that. But again, those credits that you've already earned for English 1101 and 1102, they're still helping towards that 128 credit hour requirement. I know students all the time, I almost wish that I could have incoming students meet seniors, because seniors are like, I'll take any credits you've got. Can you transfer some of them to me? I just need like 3 to graduate. So while it may not seem like it right now, those are worth so much long-term. The other beauty is registering early. It can get kind of competitive around here for class spaces sometimes. So being able to register a day early in advance of your class, quote unquote, is a really big benefit. So while it may seem like, these aren't this, they should be the same class. They're not the same classes, and you're still getting that benefit of having flexibility and potentially registering earlier.
Perfect. So the moral of the story is yes, do send it. All right. Follow up from Ezra. I have heard, not 100% if it's factual, should they say. I've heard that AP test scores from this year won't be ready until around July. Should we still wait to send in reports if that's the case?
You know, Ezra, I would say yes, only because I know it costs $10 to send your scores, and I'm not about having students spend money unnecessarily. There's no need to spend 2 score reports and spend an extra $10. What I would recommend, Ezra, is I know that our admissions counselors are phenomenal about being able to put in self-reported scores. So I would contact your admissions counselor, let them know, I can log into College Board, here's a screenshot of what I've taken. We can use that as kind of a reference when building your schedule to make sure that, oh, okay, we can see what Ezra's taken here. While we can't register you based on those, we kind of have that in the back of our mind while we're building that, so that we don't put you into a duplicate course that you've already taken, or we don't, we know that, okay, you've already taken psychology, we could get you set up for the next course in that psychology sequence. So I would just hold off and send them once the scores have posted. So yeah.
All right, somebody else in the Q&A asks, are a sequence of science classes required to graduate at Oglethorpe? I took survey of chemistry and it's only counted as elective. So this gets into both required classes and also the different types of courses and how they're uploaded, because I know sometimes it's confusing of, I took chemistry, why is it not counting as Chem 101? So maybe you can touch on both of those pieces.
Sure. So I know there were two transcripts I evaluated earlier this week, and they had a survey of chemistry course. So our courses at Oglethorpe are general chemistry. And so I know it seems like principles, survey, and general are not that far off, but they encompass such a different meaning when we're trying to equivocate classes. So oftentimes what I have to do when we're evaluating a class from a school that I'm not as familiar with, I do have to send it to the program coordinator for that content area. So for example, with chemistry, I've had to send that to the chemistry instructor to approve whether or not that's an equivalent course. In some cases, I may be waiting back, so I have to put it in as an elective. I noticed that you put anonymous, which makes it kind of hard for me to follow up with you afterwards, but my email address is there at the end. If you want to email me afterwards, we can take a look and see what your specific equivalency was, if I'm just waiting for it to be approved as equivalent, or if there's something else that I need. It's a dicey world out there with equivalencies, so sometimes it can be a back and forth between the program coordinator to get it approved. But I always put it in as elective just so that you know we've reviewed it and we're in the process of doing something with it. So for anybody else who maybe is like, well, wait, what about this? Reach out to me. It could just be in the process of getting approval.
Awesome. And similarly, it depends on your major if a sequence of science classes are going to be required. So if you're a chemistry major, if you're a biology major, something similar, it's very likely that you're going to need those intro chemistry classes. For chemistry major, you definitely will. If you're an English major, you are not required to take chemistry. So it is not going to hurt you to bring in an elective class rather than a survey of chemistry. So it just depends on what you're going to be studying, if that's going to really impact the classes that you have to take. We won't get too into the weeds with the major requirements because they're different. And over the course of your 4 years, you may see a class or two change in those major requirements. But one thing you can do is look on our website, look at the different majors and the classes that are required. Typically, it's going to be classes in that major and similar majors, your core classes, so your 9 core classes that everybody takes, potentially the foreign language requirement, and some electives and things like that. We're not one of those schools that if you're a chemistry major, you have to take 2 histories, 2 Englishes, 2 bios, 2 psychs. It's not really like that. So typically you're going to be more in your major and similar fields there to get you the knowledge that you need, plus core and potentially foreign language and math prerequisites. So obviously you have plenty of flexibility to take electives that you're interested in. You could definitely do a minor. You can still bring in those types of things, but we're not going to see every student being required to take certain classes unless that's core. Is that correct, Melinda?
That sounds, yes, 100%. I was like, go Kelly.
All right. Okay, so Anonymous asks, is there a way to test out of a class? Like if you took an AP class, but not the AP test, is there a way to test out of the intro level class?
Unfortunately, no. Now, I know that College Board has been a little bit more flexible this year. You can opt to register for an AP exam through them if you wanted to. So that way then you'd still be taking the AP test and we'd still consider you for it. However, it's a little different depending on what kind of subject we're talking about. So for example, with math and foreign language, yes, if you take the placement exams that we have that are in existence. If it's a different kind of subject, if it's a different subject, let's say psychology. You took AP Psych as the course, but you didn't take the exam, and now it's kind of, can I still exempt out of psychology? The answer is no, but being a small school and being super flexible, oftentimes students can speak to instructors of courses and say, hey, I took this AP course in high school. I didn't take the test, but I do feel like I would just be repeating a lot of the same coursework. And oftentimes they'll have one-on-one conversations with students and say, yep, I think you could just go ahead and move along. And what they'll do is they'll reach out to the registrar and say, hey, Melinda, Kelly came and met with me and she's just a psych superstar. So we're just going to let her go ahead and continue the series. Can you waive the Psych 101 requirement? Sure, no problem. We update your schedule and keep going. So we can certainly do something like that. It's a little hard not knowing exactly what the subject area is, but speaking to instructors is the best way to move ahead in a sequence if that's what you need to do.
Perfect. Okay, so in the Q&A, somebody asks, could you repeat the steps to view which credits have been applied from transcripts received?
Sure. So what might be easiest, I'm actually going to share my screen here. And just to make sure, because I've been doing this all day. You can see that I'm in Oasis, correct?
Yes, and by the way, everybody, we are recording this, so if you're like scrambling to write it down or something, you can always request the recording from us and just follow along with Melinda later.
So here I'm just going to go to log in, and this is my test account, Wanzi Petrel, and I'm going to click submit, and I'm going to go to the Oasis for Students tab, and I'm going to go to New Student Planning, View Plan and Register, and that's going to open a new browser or a new tab in the browser for me. And here, I'm just going to actually click on Go to My Progress. And My Progress is basically your degree audit at Oglethorpe. So if we look here, we can see that Juanita is a Film and Media Studies major with a Bachelor of Arts. So if we scroll down, we'll see her core requirements here, foreign language requirement, and then the Film and Media Studies major requirements. Now, Juanita has taken several things. They came in as elective credits, but you'll see that those still count towards the 128 here. So if we scroll back down, I'm sorry, no, I just whoosh through that. This Psych 1101 Intro to General Psychology with the grade A and Spring, that's a transfer course. So any of your transfer courses are going to be showing up here under, it might not be under other course, but this course prefix and number should match what you took at your previous institution. This one is from Georgia State. So if you were at Georgia State, it'll usually have a 4-letter course prefix and then 4-digit number. I'd also like to point out, if you are, for example, I'm going to go to view a new program here for Juanita, and I'm going to select psychology because I'd like you to see, help if I knew my alphabet, I'd like you to see what it would look like if you took a course that satisfied a major requirement. So here, we can see that Intro to General Psychology is now satisfying a major requirement. So you're welcome to flip through these at any point in time. Changing that, view a new program isn't going to change your major. So you can do that without any penalty, without getting, oh no, I accidentally did. Perfectly fine. But you can see how the credits that you've taken may apply in a different program. I see that a lot with psychology, biology, and biopsychology. Students like to kind of see, oh wait, maybe I like this one better. So that's how you can view any transfer credits that have already been evaluated and posted to your record.
Awesome. And that system is new in the past couple of years. It's awesome. It's super user-friendly. I love it. You are not expected to know how to use it now. We'll give you more information about that. You can play around with it yourself. A lot of it you can kind of just test out, and it's easy. But your Compass advisor is going to walk you through it within your first 2 weeks of starting classes. So you'll meet your Compass advisor. They'll show you all of this. They'll talk to you about your major if you know what it is. We'll do course planning with you. It's great. So don't feel like you need to know all that stuff, but you're welcome to go in and look if you like. Carlos asks, when will students begin to register for classes for next semester? So I can start that one out, Carlos. So what we're going to do is we're using your course preference form that we've asked you to complete in your Petrel portal. If you didn't do that by Friday, which was the deadline, please do it now because we need it so that we can put you in the classes that you want. But we're using that information as well as the major that you've told us you want to have if you know it. If you don't know your major, that's okay too. We still use the course preference form to see what you're interested in. But we're using that. Our Compass advising team and others are building your semester schedule for you. They're going to be reaching out to you in either late June or early July. So they're going to be scheduling and making calls to every single student to walk you through your schedule, answer questions, and if you need to make changes, they can help with that too. So just because we register you in something doesn't mean you're required to take it. If changes need to be made and they're able to be made, we can help with that. But it really helps to have an advisor schedule you your first semester because it's kind of overwhelming. I did it that way. I didn't go to Oglethorpe and you had to do it yourself and you don't know what to register for, and then you end up in classes you don't need. So it really helps to have our advising staff do it for you. And then moving forward in future semesters, you'll do it yourself with the help of your advisor. So to answer your question, you will get a schedule starting in later June. So everybody will be contacted with that information and we'll walk you through it, and you'll have it in plenty of time. But you have to do the course preference form for us to do that, or you'll be in classes that you didn't necessarily want to be in. And if you do want to change your major from what we have on file, just let us know so that we're able to incorporate that. Would there be anything you'd like to add, Melinda?
No, I think that's it.
Let's see. So Chloe has a specific question that I don't know the answer to, and I don't know if you have the answer to it, but I'll just throw it out there, and if we aren't able to answer it, we'll follow up with her.
Okay.
So Chloe asked if I was interested in taking the leadership course my freshman year. Do you know what she's referring to by the leadership course?
I don't.
Okay, then we'll have to come back to that one. So we will follow up. I know there is something that's being offered, but I don't know the specifics of that class. So we'll follow up with you.
Yeah,
Chloe.
I think that might be a longer conversation. So yeah.
I think it's a new class, which is exciting, but I don't know the specific answer to your question. Let's see. So Jamie wants to know, is there a way I can change the language I chose on the course preference form? So we can change that for you, Jamie. If you want to reach out to your counselor, or we can follow up with you. We do have your name here. But if you just want to send a quick text to your counselor and say, hey, I want my language to be changed. I chose Spanish, but I'd like to do French. That's totally fine. We have not created your schedule yet, likely, or even if we have, we can change it. If you already did the placement exam, you can probably still do the other one, but the sooner the better that we can get all of that stuff in, so we make sure that we're able to get you placed in the right spot. Cool. Let's see. How do you know who your counselor is? Great question. I would tell you, but you're anonymous. But you should be receiving texts and emails from us. Occasionally they're from our dean of admission or professor, whoever, but typically there's one person who's emailing you more often. It's either Christian, Ethan, Kelly, who's me, Katie, or Tucker. So if one of those names sounds familiar, they're admission counselor. If you don't know who to get in touch with, just hit reply to any of the emails you've gotten from admission, and your counselor will follow up with you. So they'll be able to find that. If you are getting texts and emails from us, it should have their name at the bottom. So it's one of those folks. If you can't find them, you can reach out to me. My email is kbutler1, BUTLER, the number 1, at oglethorpe.edu, and I will have them reach out and introduce themselves. Cool. Somebody anonymous wants to know, is MAP Day still being held on campus? That's a great question. Unfortunately, we cannot hold MAP Day on campus this summer just because of the restrictions that are going on for the groups of people that we're allowed to have in one place, and your safety is our top priority. So MAP is not being held on campus, but all the content that you get from MAP Day is going to be available to you. We're having tons of webinars like this. We are launching an online platform for you guys. It's going to be on Moodle, which is a platform you would already use once you're an Oglethorpe student, and it's going to have all kinds of modules that will be released about your courses, about billing, about study abroad, all the fun stuff. It won't be a one-day thing where you have to sit and stare at a screen at 8 hours, because who wants to do that? But it'll be gradually released throughout the summer, and we'll still make sure you get all the information that you need. So please make sure you're checking your emails. Please make sure that we have your correct phone number on file. Please make sure that you're looking at all that, because we're going to be sending you a lot of reminders and information, and you need to be able to access all of that to get the info that you need. All right, Bronwyn wants to know, if our major is undecided, are elective credits still useful?
Absolutely. So elective credits, again, they act as an opportunity to give you more flexibility. So I'm just going to give you a scenario just to kind of give some details so that you're like, oh, okay, now I see what you're saying. So let's say I start my first year at Oglethorpe and I'm like, you know what, I'm undecided, but I'm bringing in 20 credit hours from dual enrollment in high school. And so I get through my first semester and I was like, you know what? I took this econ class and I really liked that econ class. So I think I'm going to declare my major as business administration in the Hammock School of Business. And yeah, that's what I'm going to do. Now, 2 things. One, you're going to be able to register ahead of your peers. So you're registering on the 3rd registration day rather than the 4th registration day, based on the number of credit hours you brought in. And then 2, the majority of our majors, particularly business administration, has fewer required major classes, and they're sequenced in such a way that oftentimes students I've encouraged them to pick up a minor, because you have so much room in your 4 years to add and augment what you're learning. So in that case, it's like, great, I brought in these credits with me. I have my first semester where I experimented and took some courses I maybe wouldn't have taken. And now I'm well on my way to meeting the 128 credit hour requirement. maybe I get to the end of my time and I'm like, you know what? I have a semester where I kind of don't have any required courses left. I've met the credit hour requirement. Well, do I graduate early, or maybe I take this semester and decide that I'm going to do an internship. We have tons of internships with Atlanta companies. Some of the students that I've worked with before have gone to Deloitte, Home Depot, Coke, places like that, where they were able to do internships because they could give up their entire semester, quote unquote, to do an internship because they need to have those number of hours a week that they can work. So yeah, is it super helpful? It's hard to say because you haven't declared your major yet, but there are a myriad of benefits that regardless of your major, those credit hours are going to help you. I hope that helps answer your question.
Yeah, and elective credits are never going to hurt, right?
Yeah.
So it's always going to be good to have those hours. One thing nobody's asked, but students have asked me this in the past, is do the hours I'm bringing in, if you're a Georgia student, count towards my hope hours? So am I going to be, running out of hours on my scholarship? No, that's not going to happen. It only is once you are a actual college student. So you don't have to worry about that. And the other piece is people will say, how does it impact my GPA? So how will these classes that I brought in impact my college GPA? And the answer again is it doesn't. So whether you got an A, which would be nice to bring in an A to your GPA, or whether you got a C plus, you're getting credit, but you're not coming in with a college GPA. You're starting from scratch. So it does not hurt you to bring those credits in. If you're on the fence about it, just send us your transcript. It's always a good thing to do. And you could change your major, later on and decide you want those classes, or you could decide, like Melinda's been saying, you want to do an internship or something, or maybe you decide to be pre-med, and pre-med suggests that you do sociology and psychology when you were just planning to be a bio major. So there's all kinds of reasons that those could be helpful for you. So we say do it.
I also want to clarify, you said start from scratch with your GPA. Just to clarify for everyone, you start over with a 4.0 GPA. So
not zero.
not zero. So it's a kind of a fresh slate. So, if you're like, oh man, that class really kicked me, and it was harder than I thought it was going to be, starting over with the 4.0. So that's in a way, it's kind of a blessing in disguise.
Totally. Okay, so Anonymous asks, if I wanted to explore one of my academic interests as a minor, would that be something I would confirm in the fall?
You certainly can. As Kelly said, our Compass advising team is going to be reaching out to you about your schedule. So that's certainly a conversation you could be having then. A lot of times, minors consist of about 4 to 5 classes. So in the grand scheme of your 128 credit hours, that is a small number. So it's certainly something that you can do after your freshman year, even adding that in. But if you'd like to start exploring it now, go for it. So reaching out and saying, hey, thanks for sending me my schedule. I see these classes here. I also wanted to bring up, I was thinking maybe of doing a studio art minor. Like, any chance I could get into a studio art class instead of one of these? Sure, like let's take a look and see what's available. So that's something that we can discuss as your schedule's coming back to you. And you might even get lucky and it could be karma or serendipity, and you could get the class that maybe you wanted for your minor. So, but certainly bring it up now. Yeah.
Perfect. You may have already said this, I'm not sure, but we had it as a question during registration. And I want to reiterate it, even if we said it. So when is the deadline to submit these things? When should students be really trying to get these things done?
There's really no actual deadline for when you get these to us, but I can't guarantee that if you don't get these to us before the end of the summer, that you won't be registered for a class that you already have credit for, that you won't be potentially in a class that you shouldn't be in, because let's say you completed the prerequisite and it's like, whoa, no, you need to be in this other class. And it just kind of gives us a bad idea of where you truly stand. So for example, I had a student who was junior, had 32 credit hours, never even mentioned that, oh yeah, hey, I have these. And it's like, wow, we've been making this plan for you to graduate, because I do work with all of our graduating seniors to make sure that, hey, where are you? What are you registering for? Let's make sure you graduate on time. Here's this big chunk of things that we didn't know existed. So now it's like, well, we just wasted your whole first year because we didn't know what you had already taken. So, yeah, okay, don't send it to us if you don't want to, but the only person it's hurting is you. So I really encourage you to send it if you can. And I know that some students, $10 is a lot to send scores and things. If that's going on, just reach out to us. We'll figure out a way to work with you, okay? So, don't feel like, or even a transcript. In some cases, there's a fee to have your transcript sent. If you're struggling with that, just reach out and let us know, and we'll find a solution. But the only person you're hurting is yourself by not sending those in. So ASAP is basically once scores. I think it was Ezra that mentioned it. Once scores are posted, once grades are posted, then send us those records.
Perfect. And we'll take one more question. I think you answered this in a different way, but just to clarify if anybody still isn't quite understanding. How do dual enrollment credits, associate's degrees, and college classes affect a student status as far as freshman, sophomore, etc. goes? So if they're bringing in a certain number of credits or an associate's degree or whatever it is, how is that going to impact everybody starts as a freshman. People may not really quite, that may not occur to folks initially, but how does that affect their status?
So a lot of times there's this confusion about, oh, well, I'm a freshman because it's my first year of college. Right, but if you're bringing in any credit, that doesn't really make you a true freshman anymore, because our definition of class is based on the number of credit hours a student has earned. So a freshman is anyone who has 0 to 32 credit hours. Most of our students fall into that range when they come in with their dual enrollment credit hours, or AP or IB. So the most that they could hope to be is a sophomore by their second semester of Oglethorpe. However, sometimes we have students who've completed associate's degrees during their dual enrollment, and those students could bring in 64 credit hours. They could bring in 80 credit hours. And those students are then considered juniors. So those students are coming in as juniors in our mind, even though it's their first year at Oglethorpe. And oftentimes with those students, we're looking at them already being maybe halfway through their major coursework. So those students we have to work with on a more one-on-one basis to say, okay, hey, here's what you've already completed. Here's what we still need you to take. So we need to kind of fit you in the middle of a sequence. And so it's great for you, because that means that you have more time to explore minors, study abroad, internships, etc. But that's how it would impact your standing. It's all based on the number of credit hours you've earned, and not necessarily how long you've been enrolled. Because I also have it on the reverse when students are like, oh yeah, I'm a senior. And I'm like, no, you're a junior because of the number of credit hours you've earned. So it's a two-way street there.
Yeah. And just in case anyone's confused, you're still a first year student in the ways of like dorms and, things that you need to complete. Your standing in terms of what year you are with classes is going to be its own thing. But we can't put you in a upperclassman dorm if you have 80 credit hours, even if you're a first year student. So it's going to be a little bit different, that part versus the other part. But in terms of your classes, we definitely want to make sure that's clear. So if you have questions about your specific situation, just let us know. We are just about out of time. Melinda, do you want to put your contact info back up real quick?
Sure.
Awesome. Like we said, we're not able to get to every single question, and we can't answer the ones that are too specific, but we still want to answer them. So please feel free to reach out to your admission counselor. We can connect you with anybody you need to talk to. Sometimes we can do the evaluations ourselves. If you have specific questions that you want to talk to Melinda about, you're welcome to reach out to her as well. But your counselor is always happy to help you. So definitely do reach out and ask those questions. If there's something that you're worried about or confused about, please don't feel like you have to wait until the fall to get an answer, because we are all working from home. We are all available. We all want to help you. Would you like to give any more words to our students, Melinda, or say anything else before we head out?
I just want to say thank you, everyone, for participating tonight, and welcome to the Petrel family.
Yay, we're so excited to have you guys join us in the fall. We cannot wait to welcome you. Thank you for watching. If you have more questions, let us know. Somebody just put in the chat, could I get a recording of this? Yes, you can. So if anybody had issues or just would like a recording for their reference, just let us know. We're happy to send it to you. And we will be posting it on the website. So you can find it on the virtual events section of the website. But thank you so much, Melinda. This was super helpful. I know our students appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. And we will see you at our next webinar soon. Bye.